Okay, wonderful. Great. Okay, so and then I'll just ask everyone if you could mute when the speakers are there. So welcome again to this Women's Informal Network seminar on introducing an introduction to Lifetraps with Dr. Daria Russo. I'm Chitra Deshpande, and I'm the founder of WIN and here in Rome. And today we have with us also many of our other WIN Rome leaders. So Marilena Heinrich, and I think Tiziana Galloni will join a little later if she can. And otherwise, we have some leadership from New York. So I'm very glad to see Erin Anastasi. So good morning, very early morning to you. And good morning also to Daniela Milic, who's also part of our New York leadership. And others, if I'm missing you, just write it in the chat. So I'm glad to have all our leaders. And as I said, we have a new WIN Geneva, and we have some members there. And I shouted out to Hannah, who's joined WIN recently from Geneva. And they're launching a WIN Colombia this year, as well as Ethiopia. So if you're in any of those locations, let us know. So really glad to have you. And today is, I think, basically our third event in our well-being program this year. So we kicked off the well-being program in New York with the great presentation on the overall UN system, global mental health framework and network. And Daniela led that. And then we followed up with a mindfulness session. So, going from framework to some tools. And we're following up with more tools by inviting the IFAD staff counselor, Dr. Daria Russo, to the presentation and to present to us some more techniques and this specific technique on Lifetraps. And for those of you who do not know Daria, she joined IFAD last year, and she's been working in the mental health field since 2007, and she was trained in Italy and Australia, and she completed her doctoral degree in psychology in the United States. And she has many, her specialty is in integrative therapy, and it's a form of psychotherapy that combines different therapeutic tools and approaches to fit the needs of the individual client. So she uses cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamic therapy, and also eye movement desensitization. So many new techniques that she's bringing to those of us at IFAD we get to benefit. So we're very glad to have her. And so we're sharing this benefit a bit by her sharing on Lifetraps. So at this point, I'm going to pass the floor to Daria, and she'll do a presentation, and we'll have an opportunity to do the Lifetraps test. And then afterwards, we'll open to discussion. So over to you, Daria.
Sorry, sometimes it gets stuck. The computer is kind of slow, but hopefully everything will go well today. So thanks for the presentation. I'm happy to be here. Today we decided to talk about Lifetraps because also by talking with some staff members, I realized that people, even during the years, they find themselves stuck in similar dynamics. And what I feel is very important is starting to become aware of where behaviors, thought processes come from, because we really don't think about that they're rooted in our growth. They're just kind of what helped us survive until today, but at times they become dysfunctional, and then we just get stuck into them and we can't move forward. So we find ourselves struggling with similar situations, similar relationships, presenting similar dynamics, and we don't really understand how we can detach from what was necessary until today, because I always like to underline to my clients that what we used until today was needed for survival, for anything. Even if we feel that it's a dysfunctional way of living, that was needed in that moment. So it's not the idea of taking it away, but it's the idea of seeing it, being more aware, and trying slowly to change it, modify it. Because we can't get rid of who we are or how we deal with things, but we can see it from a different lens. I always try to see things with different lenses so that we can understand better how we deal with different situations. So life traps was something that we thought could be useful for all of us, just to have a better awareness of where we come from, where we're at right now, and how we can move forward and see if some of them are going to just stay the way they are and some others are going to be easily changeable, let's say it that way, or modifiable. I'm going to try to put the slides here. Hopefully it's not going to, let me see. Tell me if you see them.
It says it started share screening, so but it hasn't materialized yet. So I'll let you know when we see it.
Okay.
We see it, or I see it.
Okay. So how I'm going to start this presentation is we're going to go through what the life traps are. I'm going to give you some time to ask questions. I really want it to be on both sides, so I just don't want you to be listening to me talking about life traps. I sent a link on the comment piece that will ask you guys to go to afterwards and take the questionnaire. At the end of the questionnaire, you'll have a space to put your emails and you'll get the results. Then we can come back together and we can look over the other slides that are around how we can work through the life traps that came out. And if you feel free to share with us if you want, or just keep it to yourself, contact me later, whatever is best for you, we're here to help. So just see it as a tool to work towards even after the presentation. So like I was saying, life traps start from our childhood. What happens in our childhood, we have needs like we have them today. And these needs at times are not met like we would want them to be met. So what we learn are strategies to move forward when we feel that our needs are not met. And what we do is we try to be self-sufficient in a lot of situations. And through our growth, this becomes more and more and more and more present in our life, so that we feel that we're independent. Oh, we can do it on our own. We don't have needs. We don't need anybody else to help us because we can make it. We can work through it. And then also in our work-life balance situations, we have a hard time balancing it because we want to do it all. We always want to be there and we never want to ask for help. And this at times is related to the fact that when we were little, that was a schema that was presented in our mind daily, every day, because maybe it's our background, maybe it's our culture, maybe our needs weren't met because emotionally we didn't have emotional present parents. So certainly there are situations that today we can look at going backwards and saying, I had these needs and these needs were not met for one reason or for the other, just because our parents didn't have the tools to meet those needs. So they become patterns that start in childhood and they recreate themselves throughout our life. Some of them through childhood until today, we are able to work through them just because of experience, and some of them we just bring with us. So they're very resistant to change. And we view the world through our life traps lenses, like I was saying before. So it becomes very important to understand that we can change the lenses through which we look at the world, right? So that's an old schema. We can learn new schemas. We can see the world from different lenses. Sometimes we think, my God, my mom, my dad, my aunt used to see life this way, and I'm just representing it today. I'm seeing it through their lenses. Why? Let me stop. I'm going to start seeing it through my lenses. And my lenses are totally different because I have totally different experiences. Sometimes we represent the same lenses to our children, and they start seeing life through the lenses of the grandmother that we felt, oh, I'm never going to do it like my mom. I'm going to be so different. But unfortunately, those are the lenses we know. Those are their comfort zone. So we represent them. By knowing that they're very resistant to change, that becomes the challenge, right? So at least observing them and knowing that they're not our lenses is already a huge step. Because if we know that something doesn't belong to us, we can easily change it. We can easily move from that. there are mechanisms, right? So there are 3 mechanisms that are recognized for the life traps. The cognitive mechanism, right? So we see things in a distorted way, but then it becomes our common way to see things, right? So we understand things, we learn things through those lenses. So even if things are like, oh, 2 people are seeing the same experience, they're seeing it from 2 different lenses. It's because we have different schemas built in ourselves. We have a different way of learning and different way of keeping track of how things from our point of view should move forward. So sometimes we also unconsciously misperceive the situation, right? So sometimes we feel, oh my God, I'm so dramatic. Why am I seeing this way? Another person would not see it this way. Another person would not feel so emotional in a situation like this. Even if you think about it, I'll use some examples also in the workplace, so maybe you can relate better. But even if in the workplace, you could see it as, oh, my colleague, why isn't she relating to me? Why isn't she understanding where I'm coming from? Why is her reaction to this? Why is her reaction to my boss's behavior totally different than mine? And I'm sure that it's because there's a trigger there. One of my questions that I asked to the staff members and also to my outside patients is, what is the trigger? Who does this person remind you of? And the first answer is always nobody. But if we go deep, there's always a connection, even a small connection, that it could be the smell, it could be the smile, it could be a word. There's always that small trigger that we sometimes don't even know it because we just go on autopilot that can trigger us. And that makes it hard to go out of that schema. We have self-defeating life patterns, right? So we continue, like I was saying before, to participate in situations and relationships that trigger that. Sometimes it's so hard to disconnect because that's what we feel is our comfort zone. Even in our most important relationships, we find ourselves relating to similar people because those are the ones we recognize. Those are the ones somehow makes us feel at home. Even if we feel that there's something wrong with them, even if we feel there's something wrong with the relationship, somehow there's that comfort zone that we get attached to. So what happens in this specific situation, changing the schema and changing the life pattern becomes very important because it allows us to grow out of also the traumas that certain situations put us through, that makes us grow through those dynamics that are always the same and that they don't allow us to grow because we already know how we have to deal with certain situations. We already are prepared to those emotions. We already know what's going to happen and how the end of that situation is going to look like. So for how much we want to change it, the familiarity of it makes us stay there. And this unfortunately becomes a trap. And then there's the coping style. The trap is painful, right? So sometimes after a bad situation, we feel pain, we feel frustration, we feel sadness. We always tell ourselves, why me? Why me again? But unfortunately, it's because it's a trap, and how we call it, it's a life trap, and we're stuck there and we don't know how to change it. And at times we are even afraid of changing it because what's going to happen if we change it? How am I going to deal with this situation in a different way? I don't know. So better go with what I know. So at least I know the outcome. At least I even know how to deal with my frustration. I know it's going to pass. I know I'll find other ways to make it better for me. And I can adapt. So
Daria, can I ask you, just if you
Sure.
could press the presentation button, just so that we can see the slides better. Yeah, great.
Sorry.
No problem. Great.
So what happens is we reinforce the traps, and this makes it even harder to change, right? So sometimes we just look for what's familiar, so what we know, to reinforce it. So at least our schema is right. I know it. I knew that this was going to happen. I knew that this person was going to react this way. I knew that I was going to end up suffering at the end of this situation. By saying that, what we're doing is, oh, yeah, see, I was right, but I was right in a dysfunctional way. I was right just by reinforcing a negative schema. What are some coping mechanisms, responses to the life traps? And we won't have them all. We won't recognize ourselves in all, but maybe in some of these, right? So we have aggression, we have hostility, we have manipulation, we have exploitation, dominance, overcompensation, recognition seeking, stimulation seeking. And if we think about where we're starting from, so from our childhood, we understand sometimes when people would have said, oh my God, why are you so manipulative? Why are you so overcompensating? And this could be that that's the coping mechanism that you chose, not even knowing it, but in a subconscious way, to bring up in your life because you felt that was more suited for you. It was okay with you and how you were feeling when you were doing it. I'm manipulating because, oh, if I do it, I'm getting something. There's a secondary gain. So why not do it? Oh, I'm dependent. That's something that keeps that person attached to me. I can be impulsive. Oh, but everybody's accepting that I'm impulsive. Nothing is changing. So why not keep that, right? So I'm avoidant. This is easier. If I'm avoidant, then I can be resistant. I can keep myself away from certain situation. There's a lot of the social isolation right now, right? So I see that some people are enjoying it because they don't have to be always around other people and trying to put different masks and oh my God, and there's that self-esteem there that's not working. So better be at home and nobody's going to see me. I'll work from a computer and that's amazing. And there's also the other piece. Oh my God, I'm missing everything else. I'm missing the social life. I don't want to be isolated because that reminds me about something else. So these are the triggers that I feel are important to always keep in mind, right? So the trigger, what is there that's stimulating us into doing certain things, into bringing up certain coping mechanisms? Going into the life traps, and this is what you're going to find also doing the questionnaire, is we have these life traps. The basic safety, for example, is the big part of the life trap. And underneath, we have abandonment and mistrust and abuse, right? So when we didn't feel safe, what happens is we tend to look for example, relationships where we always have that feeling that, oh my God, he's going to abandon me or she's going to leave me. Or, oh my God, I can't trust that person. Something's bad going to happen. So we really never relax. We always have that kind of tension that's always in the back of our mind. And what happens here is we don't enjoy the relationships. We don't enjoy the connections. Because there's always that kind of voice in the back that's like, but you don't deserve it. Something could happen. Maybe there's going to be something that's, boom, it's going to explode and you're not ready for it. So just do whatever you can to not make that happen, because usually in your schema, that's going to happen. The self-esteem part, right? So, oh, you're a failure. You should be ashamed of yourself. Maybe even growing up, right? So how many times we heard, you could have done better. You could have done better. And even from you could have done better, we think, well, that's not too bad. But if we see it from how it is, it means you're not enough, right? It's not great, you did what you could. There's always that piece of, you could do better. So be a little bit stronger, work better, study better, believe in you more. There's always that more. The connections to others, right? So the emotional deprivation. Sometimes we don't realize that we are the ones that tend to deprive ourselves from others because we don't share who we are. We are afraid of sharing our needs because what happens is, oh, I'm sure they'll never listen to my needs. But did you share? No. Why? Because I don't want to get to that point where the person is going to say no. But even a no is a way to be able to understand who we have in front of us. And so that becomes a dynamic where the life traps start connecting to each other. Because if I share my needs and that person says no, I give that person the freedom to say no. But on the other side, it could trigger my abandonment issues. So we always have to keep in mind that the life traps are connected. Not all of them, not fully for all of us, but in a way, there's something that connects them one to the other. The self-expression, right? So the subjugation, the unrelating standards, the idea of realizing who we are, right? So who we are in the world, what is our role? And having that, what are our standards? What do we feel people see in us, and what do we feel we see in us? We always think like, oh my God, I don't want to do that because if not, that person is going to think I'm not good enough. But is it because we have unreal expectations towards ourselves, or is it really the other person? What kind of lenses are we wearing? Autonomy. So being dependent, this is a big one right now, right? So we have to be independent, we can't be dependent. But even when we talk about love, we shouldn't look at it as dependency, but we should look at it as relying on the other person. That doesn't mean we are dependent from the other person. It means we are supporting each other. But what we learned growing up is you can't be supported by anybody else. You need to do it on your own. And that's another strong schema. Even adolescents today are struggling with that, because what does that mean? Where is our level of responsibility? Where is the other one in our life? So it becomes important to understand the roles and the boundaries, where that person's boundary come to and where my boundary come to, so that we can connect in a correct and healthy way. And then we have the realistic limits, the entitlement and narcissism, right? So sometimes we are so scared of everybody's judgment that what we do is we become stronger about ourselves. We fill those holes. That doesn't mean that people that are narcissistic are really, okay, no, I thought somebody was talking.
Just to ask everyone, can you, Shintayehu, can you please mute yourself? Shintayehu, can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Daria, do you want to continue?
Yes. So when we talk about narcissistic individuals, we also have to look at the limits of the fears, right? So, oh, he's a narcissistic person. Well, we need it also to build, to become that way, right? In general, as a human being, because if not, we could have a different reaction. Oh, I can become dependent. I can exclude myself from social life, or I can become narcissistic. What am I going to decide? And there are negative dysfunctional patterns. There's schemas that are totally dysfunctional, but we go on from one end to the other. And obviously, like everything in life, in the middle, it's the best way to go. But it's not easy, because not all the parents teach us to live that way, right? So it's way easier to look at it as a black or a white thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to go on the wait.
I shared the link, Daria, in the chat.
Perfect.
You can share it again. So if you click on that link, you can get to the Lifetraps test, correct? Yeah.
Yes. So what I want you to do when you go on the Lifetrap, I want you to answer to all the questions, put your email, the email should come right away to you. And I want you to look at the scores that come up, pick the ones that are higher, write them down. It could be 1, it could be 2. There's scores that are going to be higher than others. Think about the connections with your childhood through those lenses of the Lifetraps. Think about who influenced the Lifetrap, who caused it, who was there for you and who wasn't, right? So who was part of these Lifetraps? And if you want, we can examine them together and talk about them. If not, just keep in mind that we're going to go through the other slides and look into the Lifetraps and see how maybe we can work through them. And start breaking down the patterns, the thoughts and the behaviors, like really realize, oh my God, I usually do this in this situation. This happens in this situation. Oh, I don't see myself doing that. So maybe I should be more aware of it. And start working on self-awareness. This is really the goal of today's presentation. It's giving you some tools to be more aware of who you are, how you work, and what schemas you have. Okay.
So Daria, at this point, we'll give everyone a few minutes to test.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I heard some people are joining. For those who are just joining, we're just taking a moment. You'll see in the chat a link to the Lifetrap test. And if you click on the link, we're all taking the test. We're taking a few minutes to take the test, after which we'll discuss it. So please find the link in the chat. And then otherwise, please mute yourselves.
I'm gonna get some water and come right back.
I heard somebody just join, so please, if you've just joined, look at the chat and click on the link to take the Lifetrap test. I'm just going to check in. Do people need more time? Or can maybe we
done. I just finished 2 minutes ago or something. It's quite a lot of questions.
yeah, it is quite a few questions. Just maybe we can have Daria start speaking, unless somebody says,
Maybe we
no,
can
wait.
give them 2 minutes to 1:10 and start, whatever's best.
Great. How about we split the difference and we give 1 minute, because I think maybe they can continue and finish up while you start, just because I'm cognizant that you need to leave as well. So I don't want to. Great.
Okay, so for who already finished, was there any questions or anything that you want to share that came up for you? And I don't think we're recording anymore, right? For now. I can't hear you. You're
We are
muted.
still recording, so I will stop the recording now so that we can have a discussion. So.